Hello, my name is Darnetta Bolton. I am Youth Services Librarian at the Orland Park Library, and I'm also a homeschooling mom of 5. I have kids in grades 7 through first grade, so 5 kids within that age range. Today, I'm here to answer a few questions and help you to sort out a few things. There's been several weeks, actually months, since we've all started to school for the semester, and given the current challenges with COVID-19, I thought that some of the homeschooling parents and parents doing at-home learning might have a few questions at this point. So consider this a check-in to see how everyone's doing. I have a few questions that are the most common questions that people have around this time of year, and hopefully these questions will help to ease a few of your concerns. So first of all, let me assure you that this is a very common time of year for people to have struggles when it comes to homeschooling. So if you're new to homeschooling or you are doing at-home learning around this time, usually November and February are the challenging months for homeschoolers. It's because the newness of the school year has worn off. We were excited, we bought our curriculum, and now we're really just in our regular routine and we don't have as many new things to look forward to. So if you're feeling a little like the days are just kind of the same day after the other with no real exciting things to look forward to, it's just the nature of the month of November, and especially after Thanksgiving holiday, there's usually not very much to do but school. So don't be concerned, it's actually very common, and these feelings can kind of creep back up around February as well. So the first question, or I guess it's a question, but first attitude I think I would like to address, and this is probably a lot very common, is that the parent that is doing the primary schooling, the primary parent that is doing the schooling at this time, it's very common for the concern to be that they feel burnt out right now. So if you are the primary schooling parent right now and your main concern is, I'm tired, I feel a little burnt out, and it's only November, what should I do? First of all, let me assure you again that it's not uncommon to feel tired at this point. Again, all the newness and the adrenaline of starting the school year is already worn off. And I would just suggest the first priority be your own physical and emotional health. We've all heard the saying that you need to put your oxygen mask on before you put the oxygen mask on a child when you're traveling in an airplane. And I would say that this is a situation where it applies greatly. If you are the primary homeschooling parent or adult in your home, or e-learning parent, then I would suggest that you make severe changes to your schedule, not severe, significant changes to your schedule to ensure that your mental health is a priority. And I'm saying this only because if you're the primary parent that's responsible for the learning, the e-learning, or just the homeschooling, you should make sure that you have things in place to make you feel energized, and if you're feeling a little down, things that make you a little bit more encouraged. So a few suggestions I have would be to go for a morning walk. Now, it's getting a little cooler in the Chicagoland area, so that may not be as easy to do, but if you are able to bundle up and maybe just even go for a 20-minute walk, that might be very helpful. Also, if you have young children and you have to take them with you, it's totally fine. It might not be as calm, but it would be helpful for everyone to get out of the house, walk around the block for a few minutes just to get some of the adrenaline off, and that would also help the children to focus a little better when it's time for school. If you have a spiritual practice like prayer or meditation or journaling or anything like that, I would suggest that maybe this is the time to prioritize that before your school day happens. So if you are able to even wake up 5 minutes or 10 minutes prior to the children, or even if you can't, if you are able to let them be alone for a few minutes while you have about 10 minutes to yourself, that will probably help a great deal. And even things as simple as drinking a cup of hot coffee or a cup of warm tea to the end or until you're satisfied can do a lot to make you feel calm and a little bit more rested and not necessarily flustered and just thrown into your day. So these are just a few suggestions. If there's something that you really enjoy doing that makes you feel energized, gives you some joy to begin your day, at this time of the year, I would suggest that you prioritize those things, even if it means that you might have to adjust your morning routine to make it happen. Another suggestion for the burnout parent or homeschooling parent would be to have a specific time of the day set aside for a quiet reading hour. Now, even if you don't have children who are reading alone at this time, this is a good time to have them. You can set them up with audiobooks. The library has audiobooks that are available through Hoopla, through Overdrive, and you can set them up with an audiobook through headphones or just on a speaker, and you could take time to go to another room to just relax, to read a book, or to do something that makes you feel a little bit more rested throughout the day. And if this becomes a daily part of your daily routine, then the children would become to expect it, and then it wouldn't be as difficult. So maybe at the beginning of the expectation or establishing of the routine, it may take a while to get them accustomed to doing it without interrupting you or coming out of their space that you've designated for this. But after a few weeks or even a couple of weeks of doing it, it should become part of the routine. And you could even make it a special time where they get their quiet reading. They can listen to a book or read on their own if they're able. You could even give them a treat like a warm drink, some hot cocoa, something special to make it appealing for them to want to stay in their space. And then that would be a time every day that you could look forward to having some quiet time or relaxation time. I would suggest not using that time to do cleaning around the house or catching up on grading papers or anything of that nature, that you would use the quiet hour for replenishing yourself and for the children to learn how to occupy their time for a quiet time. And also, if you have younger children and you know that an hour is probably not realistic, you could start with 20 minutes. You can start with 15 minutes. The goal is just to learn or to teach the children to be able to rest for a small portion of the day, which will in turn give you some time for rest as well. Question number 2. My house is a mess now that the kids are home all day. How do I clean and do school? So again, this is a very common question around this time of year, especially because we're launching into holidays. So you may have holiday crafts out. You might have regular school books that are in the rotation, and before you know it, at lunchtime, things can be kind of all over the place. So a suggestion for that would be to set certain times of the day for cleaning, because it's not necessarily realistic to clean up throughout the whole day, especially when the children are doing schooling. You don't want to have to feel like you need to clean all day, even when it gets a little messy. So if you determine before your school day starts that there are certain times you'll designate for cleanup times, then it will make it easier to just ignore the mess until you get to that time. An easy way to do that would be to peg the cleanup times to just normal times in your routine. So after breakfast, we clean up after breakfast and we have tables cleaned before we start the school day. After lunch, we clean up after lunch, and then we have a quick pickup around the house. After our quiet reading hour or our rest hour, we will straighten up one last time, and then maybe the last time is before bed. And that way you don't feel so overwhelmed at the end of the day with so much to clean up at once. Another suggestion for keeping things tidy could be to designate one specific place for your school papers and not allow them to move from room to room. And also, although we may not necessarily want to use the time in this way, a good time to do this would be during your school break. You could designate a day or even just a few hours of your school break to just declutter some of the spaces. The craft papers can kind of get stacked up. You can have school papers that can get stacked up. And if you just designate a certain time during your break to just go through the papers and just clean them out really quickly, that would just make it a lot easier to maintain it when you're in the thick of it in your school day. And one last suggestion is If you have multiple children in your house, you could also designate zones. You could assign the children a zone for the day. So maybe one child has the family room, one child has the living room. An older child or an adult might need to take the kitchen depending on how well they're able to straighten up. And then that way you can set a time and say, okay, at 2 o'clock, we're going to all go straighten up our zones. And then everybody will disperse. You could play some music, you could time it, you could try to do things to make that fun and interactive. And then we set a 15-minute timer. We all go and do the best job we can straightening up our zones, putting things back, and then you can be done for the day. And lastly, not everyone is able to do this, but if for some reason you are, and you could hire someone to help you, this would probably be the time of year you would want to hire some help. If that's an option for you, I would say do it and don't feel guilty about it. So question number 3. I'm struggling to find time to make healthy meals at the end of the school day. Do you have any suggestions for how to incorporate meal planning into my week? So typically after the end of the school day, the parent who's doing the primary schooling is tired and not necessarily thinking in advance of meals. One easy way to solve the meal challenge is to just keep the meals very simple. Sometimes we have a higher expectation for the school week than we're probably able to maintain. And maybe one thing you could do would be to just keep the meals very simple during the school week and save the more complicated family recipes for the weekends. Another option would be to designate specific days for specific meals. So for instance, in our house, Mondays, we always have something in the crock pot because that's the day we go to our co-op. So I don't have to worry about coming home and figuring out what's for dinner. Tuesdays is Taco Tuesday. Wednesday, we have some sort of pasta, whether it's spaghetti or fettuccine or any kind of macaroni. So that makes it easier for me because I know Wednesday is a pasta day. Thursday is an easy rice dish, and Friday's always pizza night. And then on the weekends, you could have an eat out day, you could have a big family meal day, or you could have a burger day, anything that your family likes. So maybe if you sat down with your kids, or even on your own if you don't feel like their input would be helpful, but just sit down and think of the meals that your family likes to eat on a regular basis, and you could designate meals that are assigned to days, and you could even post it on the refrigerator and say Monday's this, or Tuesday's Taco Tuesday, and Friday we're gonna all have pizza. That way everyone kind of has an expectation for what's happening, and it makes your meal planning easier, and it also makes your grocery shopping easier because you could actually create a meal plan for a week, and then you could duplicate that exact same meal plan next month because you know you have what days to expect. And if you're very organized and you know that you want to plan far out, you could also plan them for a month at a time. So you could plan 4 crock pot meals, 4 pasta dishes, 4 tacos, like a beef taco, a chicken taco, a fish taco, 4 type of taco dishes, and then you could do your pizza and you could do your rice dishes all at once. So write them all down, and then you don't even have to think about it when it's time to go shopping. You just pull them off that list and go straight to the grocery store. So those are just a couple of easy ways to do things. Because of COVID, a lot of us are already using online grocery shopping. If that's not something that you're doing, maybe think about ordering your groceries and having them delivered to your home. That would save you some time as well. Question number 4. My younger kids are so disruptive during school. What do I do with them so that I can help my older kids? So first of all, as a mom of 5, I would like to just let you know that this is very normal, that the younger kids are just playing, they're pulling pots and pans out of the bottom cabinets while you're trying to teach, and you feel like, what can I do to pull them in? So first of all, it's very normal for the younger kids to kind of get into all kinds of mischief during the school day, so don't feel like it's only in your house. Secondly, maybe a good idea would be to establish a routine where you do something with the younger kids first. So even if it's just reading them a story, and it could be as simple as just snuggling with a warm drink before the school day. That kind of gives them a little bit of the attention that they're craving before the school day happens. And when they notice that your attention is diverted and they start getting into things, it's because they think you're not paying attention. So if you give them a little bit of attention prior to starting your school day, that might help. And it's also helpful too because the younger children typically wake earlier than the older kids. And so if you have time where the older kids are still getting themselves together and your younger kids have already been up, that would be a good time to set aside just a few minutes to play a game or sing a song or just read a small book, a picture book to them, and that might help them. Another suggestion would be to plan something for them to do. So most families have just a big toy bin, but I would suggest maybe, or you have a toy area, maybe specifically set aside some toys that are only used during school day. And these could be open-ended toys like blocks, or these could be like Play-Doh, and these are things that they only get to play with during school time. And you could just kind of rotate them throughout the day. One suggestion, which could get kind of messy, is just getting a big one of those under the bed bins, and you can pour some rice in and make your own rice bin. Specifically for toddlers, this is a good thing to do because it will kind of keep them busy for a long time. I would just suggest if you have carpeted that you put a tarp or something under, because the rice would be all over. But if you put like a little dollar store tablecloth underneath the rice bin and let them sit on the kitchen floor with some measuring cups and some spoons and just pour and play with the rice, and then afterwards you just gather everything together into the rice, into your arms and pour it all back in the rice bin. That's a good idea. You could even do it with beans, but I wouldn't suggest the beans for the little kids because they can kind of do things with those beans. Okay, another suggestion for keeping the younger ones busy would be to include them in what you're doing for the school day. A lot of times the younger kids, especially if they're like kindergarten, first grade age, it's not that they don't have any school, it's just that they may not have as much to do as the older kids. And so sometimes they want to be included and they want to feel like one of the big kids. So maybe make them a little packet of things to do, and that will help them when you're at the table working on a subject. If you're doing phonics or doing reading lessons with an older child, maybe give them their own set of flashcards that they can flip through while you're doing it. Most of the times they just want to be included. You could even give them, for babies and toddlers, if they're in a high chair, slowly ration out pieces of fruit, or slowly ration out Cheerios, or if you have a popsicle, let them lick a popsicle, or something that would take them a long time to get through while you're actually at the table during your lesson. And that way they feel like they're a part of it, but they have something else for their hands to do. And lastly, as a suggestion to help occupy the younger kids would be to assign a sibling to play with them. And now this only works in families where you have multiple children. So if you have 2 or 3 kids or more, and you have a younger child who's not necessarily school age and needs something to do, but you need to work one-on-one with some of the kids, a good way to occupy the younger one would be to assign the older child something to do with them. So maybe one child has to read a picture book, and then you could use that time to do your phonics lesson with another child, or one child has to play a game with them, or they have to draw a picture. Something very simple that they could do that wouldn't take a lot of planning on your part, but it would be a great way to foster sibling relationships, and it would give them time where you know that they're actually being watched, like someone is watching them and they're not just out of your view getting into any mischief. And they're also learning something at the same time. They're learning some art skills, some fine motor skills, and even some early phonics from their older siblings. And it gives the older siblings a sense of pride to know that they're actually helping out. Okay, so the last question I have is, number 5, I picked a specific curriculum. So I picked X curriculum for this year, and I don't think it's working. How do I go about switching right now? So you want to switch a curriculum, you feel like it's not working, you've been at it for a couple of months and you don't like it. So first of all, this is very common, so don't feel like this is new. It is very common that around this time you might begin to think, oh, I spent all this money, I bought this curriculum, this is not working, and it's not going the way I planned. There's a lady online, her name is Sarah McKenzie. She has a blog and she has a podcast called The Read Aloud Revival. And one thing she says is in her planning, she plans her school year, instead of planning it all all year up front. She only plans in 6-week chunks. And I think we talked about this during the Homeschooling 101 series, is to plan in smaller chunks instead of planning everything for the whole year. So if you are one of the people who plan for the whole year, it's okay. But maybe this would be a good idea to pause and to maybe just plan for a few weeks in advance. And in that time frame, so let's say ideally you would have planned for 6 weeks instead of the whole 24 weeks or 36 weeks at once. If you just plan for the first 6 weeks, then you would bake in a week of review. Not necessarily review of school, but review for you as the educator or the primary homeschooler to sit back and reflect on how those first 6 weeks went. Now, that doesn't mean you don't do school during that review week, or you could just make it a review day. It doesn't have to be a whole week. The point is to just have some time set aside that is intentionally designed for you to reflect on how things are going. That way, you're not in the middle of your math curriculum and a child is struggling with the math concept and you're frustrated and you say, oh, this math curriculum is not working. I'm about to get on the internet and find something new. Because if you do that, then you might end up with the same problem just a few weeks later. So I would suggest, first of all, if you feel that one a curriculum choice you made was not the best, I would not make the decision to switch it in the middle of the school day. I would set aside a day or even a few hours over the weekend to sit down and actually kind of make a list of things that you feel are working or not working, and actually pause and think about it for a minute. Because it could not necessarily, it could be that the curriculum is not working, but it could also be that maybe there's some things you could do to tweak the curriculum to make it a little bit better for you. So that's the second point. It may not necessarily be the curriculum that you need to switch. It could just be your teaching methods. One thing to keep in mind is that curriculum is a guide, and it is not intended to be something that you follow to the T. So the curriculum creators put so much into these programs that it is not normal for one human person to be able to get through every specific thing in the curriculum. And if you think about even the kids in school, even the educators that are doing e-learning, they have to adjust and adapt their curriculum for the circumstances, for the children, for what's happening during the school year. So don't feel like if you're not ticking every box on the list in your curriculum that somehow that is not working. Also, it could be that maybe your child needs a little bit more interaction. So say, for instance, whatever curriculum you have, it's a lot of sitting. Maybe you could have them stand up and do some of the math. Maybe you could incorporate some phonics games where you put the words on a dry erase board, or you put the words on index cards on your wall and have them shoot a Lego, not a Lego, but a Nerf gun bullet at the words as they say them. It's the same thing as reading the flashcards. It's just a little bit more fun. So are there some ways in the current curriculum you can keep the program, but use some ideas to help make it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more fun, and more appealing to the child so that it's not hard. Now, you may still think about all those things. You might even try a few and decide, no, this really is not working. So if that's the case, I would say it's fine to just change to something else. Just do a little research and make sure you're not just going from something that doesn't work to another program that might not work. So take a little bit of time to do some research. And if you already invested in a program financially, see if maybe that there was a money back guarantee for that program, if you can somehow return it and get some of your money back. Or you could also check online to some of the buy and sell groups to see if there's anyone else that's looking to get rid of a curriculum around this time of year so that you're not paying full price for it. The last point that I like to make for curriculum is just beware of looking for the perfect curriculum, because I will admit I'm guilty. I have bought different programs every year. I'll say, oh, this is not working, and I'll switch to another one thinking that I'm just in search of the perfect curriculum. But the truth is there is no perfect curriculum. They're written by people and they all have flaws. The important thing to do is to look to see what type of program would best meet your needs in general, and accept that it will have some shortcomings. Now, there's some specific programs, for instance, certain subjects like phonics or math. These are more, these are subjects that they need to be taught every day, that children need to be taught every day in order to keep up with. So I would be very cautious in switching a math or phonics program if you're not sure, because you need to keep that up every day. And it could just be that you need to give it more time to see the progress that you're looking for. Specifically with math programs, math is one of those subjects where it could take a while and then all of a sudden they could just take off, and go a little bit faster than you had originally anticipated. It's just a skill that's like that. So don't feel like you need to hurry and switch just because it's not going well. And for math as well, I feel like a lot of homeschooling parents do switch a lot of math. So just be cautious. If you feel like it's not working, totally change it. But if you think that maybe you could make a few tweaks, that might be a good option. So these are just a few of the questions that I thought might be on your mind and are common concerns for homeschoolers and e-learning around this time. If you have any other questions or anything that you might want to know that wasn't addressed in this video, feel free to leave it in the comments and we'll try to get those answered for you. Again, my name is Darnetta Bolton at the Orland Park Library, and I hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Bye-bye.